Welcome to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast, a podcast that brings personal stories from transplant survivors, their families, friends, and loved ones. This is where you will hear challenges and triumphs of everyone involved in this journey. Our guests will offer wisdom, advice, and inspiration on everything you want to know about transplant. My name is Jenny McFarland. I am a transplant survivor, and this is a podcast I wish I had before and immediately following my transplant. Thank you for listening. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast. This is Jenny McFarland, your host, and I am ecstatic for today's episode. I finally got to talk to somebody who I've been wanting to talk to for a while, but life got in the way. I took a break and I kind of let time pass go, but that all worked out for the best because now I get to share this episode with all of you, and you guys are going to be so inspired when you hear it. But first, I just want to mention something that I got to experience myself. I got to go to the Texas State Capitol in Austin this week to the Donate Life Advocacy Day, to spread awareness about organ donation to our legislators and to thank them for what they've done and share a little bit of my story. And, you know, I know all of you who listen to this don't live in Texas, so Donate Life Texas isn't part of your world, but Donate Life is. And I just want to encourage you to spread awareness about organ donation. And I think that after you listen to this episode, then you're going to feel inspired to do so. So, just go out there, talk about it, tell people that you know somebody who's had a transplant, tell them how they can sign up to be an organ donor. Tell them about living donation. Tell them about how when they pass away, if they're organ donors, that they can give a life to multiple people who are struggling, who need it, who are dying. They can give the gift of life to so many different people. They can enhance lives of so many different people just by being an organ donor. And share with them this episode. Share this episode on your social media. This is a great episode, and it talks a lot about awareness in addition to Heather's story. So I just want to encourage you all to also share with your families what your wishes are. If you happen to pass away unexpectedly and you haven't had the conversation that you want to be an organ donor with your family, then that's putting a burden on them to make that decision after you pass away when they're already going through so much. But if you tell them, hey, I want to be an organ donor, I want to donate my organs, and you register to be an organ donor, then that takes the burden off of them, and they don't have to worry about that because they already know what you want. And just be open about it and talk about it and share with everybody you know about organ donation because it's such an important topic, and it's important to me, and it's important to a lot of people, including Heather, who I have on my episode tonight. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into this episode. Heather McCoy, I have been following on social media for quite some time. I've never met her. We weren't really friends on social media. I've just been following her through another friend. And her story is inspiring, and her positivity is inspiring. And I was inspired when I saw her videos of her getting her new kidney. And she's going to tell you about that. And so just be prepared to be inspired. That's all I have to say. Okay? So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. And help me welcome my new friend, Heather McCoy. Hi, Heather. Welcome to the Pre to Post podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Let me just tell you before we get started that I kind of feel like I know you already. I feel a little bit connected to you in some way. We have a mutual friend, Jerry, and he shares your posts a lot, and he's been sharing your journey needing your new kidney. And I've been watching in the background and following you, and I'm just honored to meet you today. I feel so blessed that I get to meet you, and I'm so happy that you're doing so well.
Yeah, well, thank you. I have always been willing to share my story, and I guess I didn't even realize how much it was really, blowing up out there until it started circling around. And so I always love meeting new people and getting
Yeah,
to talk with people from all walks of life. And organ donation and in a whole, like, I'm connected to Jerry, and but there's so many more people out there that have
yeah,
some kind of connection, and maybe they don't, but they just feel connected to the story. And so it's just really cool to connect with people.
yes, I agree. So let's jump right in and let's start with your first transplant. I know this is your third. So let's talk about the two before this. Just briefly tell me about your medical condition, when you had your first one, when you had your second one, all the things. I want to know everything. And we're going to try to keep it within a small time because I feel like I could talk to you for days. So,
So I have cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic condition I was born with. And I was always pretty much, very severe case of CF. And CF Awareness Month is actually May, so it's cool we're doing this
yeah,
now.
yeah,
And I was able to at least get through my circumstances until I was 20 years old. They first brought up transplant when I was 10, but I wasn't ready. And then we kind of just somehow were able to prolong it until I was 20. And so I had my first double lung transplant at Duke when I was 20 years old. And that went pretty well. I mean, I was doing well. I had things I never could do before, like breathing, and
yeah,
I was able to go to college and finish and just travel and do what I wanted to do. And then unfortunately I got chronic rejection in 2017.
okay,
And so the question was, well, I knew I would go through a second transplant, but of course I had to go through the process again. So got listed, and then when I was 28 years old, so January of 2020, I got my second double lung transplant. And I had more complications with that, but that is kind of normal for
yeah,
redo lung transplants. There's just a lot of scar tissue, and it just
right.
takes the body time to adapt to what's happening. But after about 2 months of getting through all that, I have pretty much had smooth sailing, thankfully, with that. And then my kidneys started to show signs that I was leading to transplant earlier than I obviously wanted, but I was very grateful I was eligible for a kidney transplant. And so I started dialysis, which was a whole draining process in itself.
Yeah,
And so I waited on the list for a kidney for about 2.5 years.
yeah,
And kidney lists are just way longer than
yeah,
a lot of the other organs. And we thought I was going to have to go the live donor route, which we had someone that was going to try to do the live donation to donate to someone else so somebody could donate to me. And literally the day before we were supposed to get approved for that, I got a call for a deceased donor. And it just happened that the donor matched really well with me and is a good, healthy young kidney.
hmm,
And so I've been doing really well. Got out the hospital in 3 days, and 3 weeks out now, I'm starting to be able to eat normal again and get back to light exercise. And so I'm just really hopeful about all the things I'm going to be able to do again
yeah,
now that I have the kidney. And so, three transplants is quite a lot to go through, but I just feel so blessed that I was even given the opportunity because unfortunately, there are some people that either don't make it through or they just aren't eligible for a transplant. And so I'm just really grateful that I have been.
Yeah. And so let me ask you, whenever you how long was it between your first lung transplant and your second lung transplant? How many years? Was it 5 years?
So I got it my first one in November of 2012.
Oh,
And I
okay.
got my second one in January of 2020. And
Okay.
I've waited on the list for the lungs pretty much about the same amount of time, about a month.
Okay. Okay. So, whenever you got your second lung transplant, and you mentioned it was a little bit more difficult to go through that one, which, I've heard several times. The second one's always a little bit more difficult than the first one. It's a very
Mhm.
common thing, like you said. Um, Whenever you found out you were going to need a kidney transplant, were you feeling like, let's see, how do I ask it? Like when you had your second lung transplant, you had already been through it. You already knew what to expect. So I'm sure that you were still probably nervous. Of course, anybody is. But when you had to get a kidney, you hadn't been through that yet. So were you like worried about what that was going to be like, or were you kind of like, well, I already know the transplant process. I know how to handle it. I know what to do. So I'm not as nervous and I'm more excited. Or was it kind of the opposite where you didn't you haven't had that experience yet, so it was a little nerve wracking?
I think I would say I was more excited with this just because I had heard from other friends that had gotten lungs and kidney that it was just not anywhere close to what I went through with lungs. And so obviously, you don't want to knock it off because transplant of any
Of course.
type is a major surgery and it's something major to go through. But I think mentally and emotionally, I knew what to do and what was going to be expected far as recovery. So like, I mean, I was wanting to walk the first day just because I knew that with lung transplant, that's how you have success is the earlier you can get up and start
Yes.
walking. And so I even surprised like the doctors with just like I this next day I was like sitting up in the chair and forcing my body to go through these things even though it hurt because I
Yeah.
knew that was going to get me success. And so I was more excited and just very hopeful about the whole thing. But it was funny because when I was talking to one of my friends, I was like, what did it hurt? Like, how bad did it hurt compared to the lungs? We kind of laughed about it because we were like, we're worried about this when we've had like our chest cut open and, and
Yeah.
everything. And so compared to that, it definitely is not anywhere compared to the severity of the lung transplant. And so I was excited and I can't say I was ever really nervous. I think because I just knew that if I could go through two lung transplants, then surely I could go through a kidney. And I think that's just what motivated me and fueled me the entire time.
Yeah. And so I forgot to ask you in the beginning, where did you have all of your transplants been at the same hospital?
Yes, at Duke University Hospital,
Duke. And that's in
Durham, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah, I live in South Carolina. So with my lung transplants, I had to move because I had to relocate temporarily to go through rehab and before and after. But with this, I didn't have to relocate, which was really nice because I could wait at home.
Yeah. And did your kidneys start to fail because of all of the medications that you were taking for the lung transplant, or was there another issue that you didn't know of?
It was kind of a combination of things. So, cystic fibrosis warriors have so many medications that we're on from birth to however
Right.
old we are. And the truth is, there's a lot of those medications that are not kidney friendly, and it's unfortunate that you have to take them. And there's lots of strong antibiotics that we can be on for months at a time. And so it was kind of already known that I had at least stage 1 or stage 2 kidney disease when
Okay.
I got my first transplant. But then, of course, you add in the anti rejection drugs that are not exactly kidney friendly.
Right.
And so by the time I got my second double lung transplant, it had just already had so many years of the wear and tear that it just couldn't take anymore. And I was holding pretty steady. And then I actually had one incident where my anti rejection drug went toxic level. And it was just like once it hit my kidneys, we thought they recovered and they just didn't ever recover. And for people that don't know about kidneys, sometimes when they have that big hit, they just never are truly the same again.
Yeah.
And so now, of course, with the kidney, I'm still on the anti rejection medicines, but they definitely are monitoring everything very, very closely to ensure that, we keep the kidney as safe as possible.
Yeah. So how was it being on having to go on dialysis? You've been through so much. You've been through two lung transplants. Um, and now you learn, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to go on dialysis. And I know that dialysis is not fun. It's not easy. You have a diet you have to follow. So how is that adjusting to that after you'd already been through so much?
It was very, very difficult balancing cystic fibrosis with the kidney friendly diet because our nutritional needs are pretty much higher than what
Yeah.
the normal healthy people have because we burn up so many calories with our disease. And so, of course, they want us eating, and you try to eat as healthy as possible. And the truth was, when it came to eating, I just stuck with pretty much like 5 or 6 food groups that I knew wouldn't cause as much swelling. And sometimes I could still have swelling and feel crummy from eating. And so it kind of took the enjoyment of eating away. But dialysis in itself, and some people don't have this experience with dialysis, and I want to stress that here because I don't want somebody to listen and say, well, I didn't have that experience of dialysis, because
Yeah.
some people feel better. Some people feel like they can go on and, lead normal lives and be on it for years and years and years. But I think what made it harder for me was having CF, having the already previous transplants, that it was just such a hard hit to my body that every time I had to do dialysis, which was 4 times a week,
Wow.
it just took it out of me. I was
Yeah.
so drained, and like I could do dialysis and I wouldn't feel worth a dang the rest of the day. And it was just because it just took so much out of me for those few hours that I was doing it. And then on the days that I didn't do dialysis, I'd have a little more pep in my step. But it was just such a grueling and draining process. And I'm very fortunate. Like, I obviously did dialysis for, I think, right around a year, a little bit after. But I had the chest catheter,
A port.
and I went through a thing of, I actually had two because I had blood infections happen. So then they had to replace it. So that
Oh
was,
yeah.
so luckily I only had the last one for a month. But yeah, it was just such a, I guess, mentally and emotionally draining thing too, because it was like I knew when I woke up I had to do it. Like there was no just saying, oh, I don't feel like doing that today. Like you knew you
Yeah.
had to do it in order to keep going. And that can be hard because obviously when you don't want to do something, you mentally have to fight with yourself to say, look, you got to do this whether you want to or not if you want to still be alive. And I know some people can go through and not have dialysis, and that's awesome, obviously, but there's a lot of people that do. And I think it's just, I wish people would see dialysis more as, yes, it might be filtering somebody's blood, but there's nothing pretty and good about dialysis, no matter who the patient is. Like
Yeah.
it's really a lot. And a lot of patients may not really say how they feel because they don't want to, burden their loved ones or their friends around them with saying how bad they really feel. But it definitely is something that I think takes a toll on anybody who has to do it, and the caregivers that have to
Yeah.
watch. My mom actually ran my dialysis at home, so it was a lot on her to have that responsibility and to see me have to go through that 4 times a week.
Right. And how long did each time take?
Sometimes I would do it near 3 hours, and sometimes if like my body just was not having it for the day, I might get by with about 2.5 hours. But as I progressed with the kidney failure, it just, extended the time each session.
Yeah. So was there a time where you thought that you weren't going to be able to come off of dialysis, or that you weren't going to be able to get a transplant, and that you weren't going to make it through this one?
I knew if I could get a call, I could survive. And not that things don't happen, but I just knew and believed. I'm also a religious person, I'm a Christian. And so a lot of my determination comes just from my faith and what I've survived already. And so I knew that if I could just get the call, but it seemed like, and I explain it as if your life is kind of dangling in front of you, and
Yeah.
you get closer and closer. But I had so many people that tested and it just didn't work out. And so obviously you get your hopes up in a way because you're like, oh, it's close, it's close, it's close. And then it was like it wouldn't work out. And I mean, like, it was young people to older people, but it was just such a shock. And they actually told me that I was one of the ones that had the most people that were interested in testing. And so you were just thinking, oh my gosh, all these people, and, what's going to happen? You were told the list for the deceased is so long and it just may not come in time. And so it was just like such a good total shock when I just happened to match, for the deceased donor. And so it was like we were so focused on, getting a live donor, getting a live donor. And then it was like total opposite, and it just worked out. But once I got that call, it was just like I knew I was going to be okay. And
Yeah.
it was for the first time in so long, it felt like I could just take a deep breath and just sigh and let it out to know, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it through this finally.
Well, I have a follow-up question on the people that tested for you, but I remember your video, the one that I saw that I was all emotional. And your video, whenever you were talking about how you got the call, you just seemed so much lighter. And whenever you just said that, I could tell looking back on your video that you felt that way, because you just seemed like you just knew that you were going to get your transplant. And it was amazing. It was so amazing.
Yeah, that video had like 20,000 views, and I was
Yeah.
like, I was just glad it could reach so many people to show people what it's like to get a call. Because I wish back then, because I do a little bit more social media now, because I just like telling my story.
Yeah.
And I wish when I had my lung transplants, I would have filmed myself getting the calls. But I knew I wanted to do that for the kidney, no matter what it was going to be, because I wanted people to see just how in an instant everything could change.
Yeah.
And it's truly giving the gift of life. And it doesn't matter where it comes from or who it is, it's just in that moment, somebody is saving you.
Yeah.
And it's like you can still have stress, but yet
Yeah.
you're on such an adrenaline rush that it's just like you're so excited that you're just on cloud nine. And so that's really what I wanted to convey in that video, was like I was literally sitting watching TV at that time of night
Yeah.
and just saw my phone ring, and I was like, why is Duke calling me at 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
And then they said, well, we have a kidney offer. And then they said, well, we'll call you back in a couple hours to make sure it's a go. And so I was thinking, oh, well, it might be 6, 7 a.m. or so. And they called back at 4 in the morning and was like, come on to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I got my call, I was sleeping actually. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. But like everything changed in that second. Like I got up, I told, the people that were in my house, and like everybody's world around me changed just from that call. And it was amazing. And so my follow-up question on your donors, you said that you had so many people test for you. Did you know everybody that tested, or did you just get a bunch of random people that you didn't know also?
So I had a mixture of it. I had some people that were up front with me because they wanted to like find out the information, and they would tell me like, hey, I'm testing, or I made it through the first round, or some would tell me they didn't. And then there were some people that tested that didn't want me to know because they didn't want me to have my hopes built up,
Yeah.
to because they knew I had already had people test and it didn't work out. And I think it's important for people to know too that anybody that's testing has their emotions in it too, because if they get turned down, then they in a way feel like they're letting you down
Yeah.
because something goes wrong. And I had several people in my family test. I had a few distant family members. I had some of my friends tested. So I mean, I don't know everyone, but they literally told me that there was over 30 people. And there were some people that I don't know that tested. I just know that there were people in the system that were testing. But I mean, there were people even all across the country that were inquiring about this. And so, for whatever reason, it didn't work out for them. And I really, really appreciate their willingness to do it in the first place. And I hope each one of them knows that they definitely did not let me down, that I will forever cherish that they thought enough about it to want to do that. And I feel like with getting a deceased, that was just what the fate was for
Yeah.
me to get a deceased donor. And so I'm hoping to write this donor family, because I did with my lungs. I never heard back, but I'm hoping they'll be open to just letting me know who my hero is. But if they don't, then, I
Yeah.
totally understand that it is hard for some people.
Yeah. Well, it has to feel amazing that people you don't know tested for you. And I think
Mhm.
maybe partly because that happened is all of your exposure on social media. That's how I learned about you. And I feel like, if I hadn't had a transplant, I probably would have tested too. But um, I think that maybe if the people that you don't know that tested for you and it didn't work out, maybe they thought, well, maybe I could test for somebody else or something like that. So it could have been a positive thing, for somebody else too. I would hope anyway. I would think that's what would happen.
And
So,
you're exactly right about that, because I think organ donation does not become personal unless it's at your doorstep. And once it becomes personal very fast.
yeah,
And even though there's some people that are still going to be on the fence about it, or maybe they appreciate your life, but maybe that's just not for them, and that's okay too. But I've wanted to share my story because I want people to be encouraged to do organ donation,
Yeah.
whether it's living or being a deceased once their life is over. And I think sharing stories like we have of showing how beauty comes from tragedy
Yes.
is what touches people to say, hey, I could do that for someone.
Yeah.
And I've had people that have said, hey, well, I'm thinking about it now that I've seen what it can do for you. And me and another transplant friend of mine were talking about that. She said, that's been my mission the whole time. And she's pretty big on social media. And she said, I had someone say that because of your story, I chose to be a donor. And she's like, that's literally all she wanted.
Yeah.
And so, I know there's some people, like I said, they're not going to choose
Yeah.
it, and that's okay. It's a personal decision, but it just would excite me so much to find out, like, hey, somebody literally saw my story and saw what organ donation does for people and decided that they want to be a donor.
Yeah.
Because as we know, organ donation is just one of the most beautiful things created, just to know that someone can help you that you don't even know
Right.
and just change your whole life and give you better quality of life and extended life. And so I'm always going to be an advocate for organ donation. And I tell people all the time, I hope you don't get tired of all my posts because I want to share this. I want people to see the good in organ donation. And yes, it's a hard thing to go through. Transplant is not easy, but it's very rewarding.
Yes. And I think that a lot of people should, even the people who don't want to be a living donor should think about your story and think about that if they want to register to be an organ donor whenever they die, they could help multiple people in one time. So it could, they can do this, they can help, they can save 7 lives and enhance 75. So I think it's important to share your story. And I think that you sharing your story whenever you got the call, it shows people, hey, this is something amazing that I can do for somebody. And I'm not going to be here anyway to go through it, but I can help somebody live. I can give somebody this gift. And I think that sharing stories and being advocates for Donate Life is so important for that reason. So I just think that people just need more education and more understanding about organ donation for sure.
Yeah, and there's so many, myths out there that unfortunately all the misinformation, I think,
Hmm.
steers people in the wrong mindset about it to begin with. And so that's why I try to preach about it on my social media to say, don't believe all these TV shows and an
Yeah,
article you read online. Like, listen to the people who have gone through it, that know the system, that knows how it works. And if you don't want to listen to me, I can put you in contact with 50 other people that's had transplants that
yeah,
will tell you the same thing. And so I'm very fortunate that for the most part, I mean, unless somebody's silently not a, pro organ donation person, for the most part, everybody on my Facebook is very supportive.
yeah,
And, they're just so excited for me. And so I think all of them, if they aren't a donor, maybe it encourages them that they can be a hero. And I think it's so important. And that's why I still want to share my story of showing things I'm able to do after my transplant so that people can see, well, you don't just get a transplant and sit on the couch and watch TV the rest of your life. Like, a lot of us are so excited and have such better quality of life that we're out doing things and just
yeah,
living life to the fullest. And that's what it's all about, is just living life to the fullest.
yeah. And even living life in the smallest ways possible. Like I remember some of the smallest little things that I couldn't do before my transplant that people take for granted every day. Like towards the end, but right before my transplant, I would get short of breath bending over to pick up something off the floor, and I would have to take
Mhm.
my oxygen into the shower, or I couldn't lay down flat. It's like those little tiny things that make such a big difference in somebody's life that people just don't understand. So,
That's so true because it is, I mean, down to eating, walking, breathing, just standing up and taking a shower, brushing your teeth. Like,
yeah,
people don't think about that that exerts energy, exerts breath. And, if you, whether you're in heart failure, kidney failure, lung failure, liver failure, I know people that's had a little bit of everything among my friends group. I know all kinds of transplant survivors, and it's like night and day when you get
yeah,
a transplant because you go from literally dying
to
to
living. Yeah,
getting life. And I said this about my kidney journey, but I remember when I got my lungs, how it felt to do things and to live. And so when I got in kidney failure and suddenly all this stuff was being stripped from me again, I was in that rut for so long of living with kidney failure. I told someone, I said, it's almost like I forgot what it was like to have quality of life.
yeah,
And how much longer was I going to have to be in this way? And then you get to thinking of, well, what if something happens with my lungs while I'm doing all this? And then I've had nearly 3 years that I haven't been able to really live life to the fullest. And then you just get your mind thinking about things. And then once I got my kidney, I was like, even though I was not fully 100% yet, it was like, oh, yeah, I do remember this. I do remember how I could eat with not feeling sick, how I had energy to exercise, and
yeah.
how I just didn't feel drained of life every single day.
Hmm. Yeah. Same. Yeah. Speaking of your lungs, I was going to ask you, how are they doing? Like, did they have any effect from your kidney failure? Like, did it affect your lungs at all?
So it obviously with the fluid around everything, because I still have a bit of fluid that I'm gonna eventually get rid of, but it's just a slow process. And so I had so much fluid. I mean, I pretty much gained like 15 to 18 pounds just in
Yeah.
fluid. And so I obviously felt that pressure in my lungs. And for a while, it was affecting my lung function. And then towards the end, I guess because I started taking more off with dialysis, some days I still kind of felt like, it's not really helping my lungs here. But I was grateful because my lung function actually went up a little bit. And so
Oh,
I'm supposed to see my pulmonologist in June, late June. So we'll see if things are going to come up any. But it may be a slow process because of surgery and recovery and everything. But I
yeah.
was I was really fortunate that it was not worse than it was.
Yeah.
My doctor was very concerned that the longer I was in kidney failure and on dialysis, that I was going to get rejection again just because of the deterioration of the body. And so, as an organ recipient, you know that we always stress about rejection, but every day that you don't have rejection is a good day.
Absolutely. Yes. That's a great attitude to have towards that because we're all afraid of rejection, all of us. And I think, especially lung transplant recipients, they give us, the statistics when you first get it, and then it's always in the back of your mind. But if you think of it as, I don't have it today, so let's just live our life today, not worry about it. I think that's a great way to think about it. Well, I'm so ecstatic that you're doing so well. And I love hearing your stories on social media, and I love watching you, and I'm going to keep following you. So I want to know, I have another question that I want to ask you that I
Yeah.
ask everybody, but before I do that, is there something else that you want to share about anything that we've talked about? Because I could keep going on and on, but I'm gonna stop myself. So, is there anything that you left out that you want to share on the podcast with anybody before I ask you my last question?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm just somebody that is a positive person and I don't like throwing pity parties. And so if anybody does check me out on social media, you'll find out very, very quickly that I may go through difficult circumstances, but I have a mentality of just because you go through hard things in life doesn't mean you have to be bitter. You still have to find that joy in your heart to keep going. And I think that's honestly what has gotten me this far in my life is just having that attitude that, okay, today may not be a great day, but there's still tomorrow and you're in charge of how you're going to respond. So you may not be able to control things that happen to you, but you can control how you respond to them. And that's just how I live my life. And so I am a very upbeat, positive person. I like to just enjoy life and have fun. And I want to use my time wisely. I don't want to use it just being upset and bitter and, thinking, oh man, life is just so hard because
Yeah.
life is such a priceless gift and it's an honor and a privilege to live it. And so I don't have, even though I live with CF and I've gone through 3 transplants, like I'm forever humbled and grateful for my experiences. I think it's made me who I am. And so I don't really have any complaints because I feel like I'm meant for this story and I have a testimony and I just want to continue to share that. And if it inspires somebody along the way, then that's awesome.
That's fantastic. Yes. Okay, so my last question is, I usually ask it a little bit differently, but um, if you had a piece of advice to give to somebody who has already had a transplant, whether it's the same transplant or a different one, and they have to get a new transplant, what would be your advice to them that you wish that you had known before you had to go through that situation?
I think the main thing would be to just remember that you can do hard things. I think someone that's already been through a transplant that may be faced with a redo or a different organ they have to receive, to just remember what you've already accomplished and what you've been through. I think transplant recipients, we're so stuck in going through the motions that we really don't have time to fully feel everything in the moment because we're such in a fight or flight mode to survive that then once you start sitting back looking at your story, you're like, wow, I really did that. And I think sometimes when you're faced with rejection or needing another organ, the first thought is, how am I going to do this again?
Yeah.
What kind of, and not everyone gets complications, but that's always a concern of what if, what if, what if. And I think it's just so important to remember that if you've already received a transplant, you know how to survive it. And so you just have to keep the mentality that you can do hard things and there is going to be hard days and days that you're going to feel like you don't know how much more you're going to be able to do. But somehow inside of you, you're going to find that will and determination to live and you're going to get through the next day.
Yeah. I think that's amazing advice. I know that a lot of people are gonna take that advice and listen to it and hopefully apply it to what they're going through. I know if I ever need another transplant, then I absolutely will take your advice because I think it's fantastic. So thank you.
Well, I try to give advice, but listen to my own advice
Yeah,
too
well, that's hard. That's
sometimes.
always difficult, right? Okay, well, Heather, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I just want to encourage you to keep sharing it on social media, podcasts, whatever you can do, because you are already an inspiration, at least to me. And I appreciate everything that you do on social media and that you came on to share your story. And before we go, and there's a question I have to ask because it's fascinating to me. When they gave you your new kidney, did they just put it in with the other one, or did they take it out?
So you keep your original kidneys, and
Yes,
so
they
they
just
just
stack it
put
in
it
there.
in, they just stick it in there. So the incision is kind of like on the outer area of my bottom abdomen, and it goes down a little bit.
Yeah,
So it's kind of, they explained it like, imagine stuffing a Nerf ball inside of your abdomen. So that's why there's also the swelling for a little while. But
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I have three kidneys.
I think that's fascinating that they do that. When I first heard that, I was like, no, they don't do that, but they do. And I think that's
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed getting to have our conversation, and it always is so awesome just to be able to share my story on another outlet, and so I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was at the transplant games in Alabama this past time. Have you
Mhm.
ever been to the transplant games?
So I was actually registered because I was going to do swimming because I'm really good at swimming. And so I was going to do swimming, and I was like getting all excited because I was going to do like the 500 freestyle or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I got rejection, and my doctor told me, well, you can still go because it wasn't like so far in the rejection yet that I was like deteriorating. And so he was like, well, you can still go if that's like what you're passionate about. But I kind of knew in the back of my mind, like I was like, I'm not gonna do as well as I would want.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just not gonna do it. And so I said, well, maybe now I can try to work up to that because I would really
Yeah.
like to go because I've heard it's a lot of fun just to be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
meet
It's
so many people.
it's amazing. It's life changing. But I've been there twice, and this last time I went, I met the world record holder for a lung transplant. A lady, I already forgot her name, but she had it. She had her lungs for like 30 something years or
That's
38 years, or
awesome.
yeah, that was really cool. She got them when
Did you
she was very young.
participate in a sport?
I did. I played cornhole. So
Okay,
that's
yeah,
the only
cornhole.
athletic ability I have.
Mhm.
It's not really
Hey,
athletic.
sometimes cornhole can be difficult.
Yeah, I want to do some other easy things. I'm not athletic at all, but it was fun. My partner and I, we won the gold in cornhole, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would love
So,
to do swimming, but I'm good at, well, I don't think they've done a softball team. I used to play softball when I was young, and
oh
I was
yeah.
really good. We went to the like Dixie World Series and all, so I
Oh,
would love to be able to do that again, but I don't know that they have a softball team yet on the
I don't
trans
think they
games,
do. Yeah.
but I could do basketball. I'm pretty good at basketball too, but
Oh yeah.
I would love to do swimming, but I'm just like, I mean, I guess I know I'm good, but it's like I don't want to. I guess like if I don't do well, then I feel like disappointed in myself. But at the same time, it's like nobody there is gonna be judging. You
Yeah.
go and you have fun, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That's all
I'm
it
I'm
is.
I'm hoping it'll be somewhere I would like want to go, and then I can
Well,
just.
it's next year, and then it's going to be in Denver. So I don't know if you want to go
Yeah,
to
I've never been to
Denver.
Denver.
Yeah. That's what 2026 it'll be in Denver. So I have my foundation, and we've been there twice. We get like a booth there, and that's really cool because everybody comes to the table, and
Mhm.
you get to meet so many people because they're coming to the table to to find out what you do. So it's really
Mhm.
cool because you meet more people than normal. So it's been a lot of fun. I've had so much fun there. Would recognize
Yeah,
them.
I've known a few that's gone to the games and they love it so much. So
Yeah.
it'll be on my bucket list, I guess, to
Even
go
if you
and
don't do any sport, it's still amazing to go and see all these people. So
yeah, I feel like if they maybe I could like request like y'all need a softball team now
yeah, they
or a
should please.
baseball team. I could play baseball too, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that'd
used to
be
be a second baseman and I was pretty good, so I would love for them to get a baseball or softball team, but
yeah. Maybe you should put that out there and be like, we need baseball. I'm sure there's tons of people that would love to play baseball.
yeah, I think there would be
Yeah.
because I mean, and if they didn't want to do that, like it's such a group effort that people, I guess, wouldn't feel like they're so singled out. Like there would
Yeah.
be a,
Yeah.
group effort to play. But I think they should. It would be really fun. I'll have to see if I can email somebody about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be like, I'll join if y'all make the baseball or softball team come alive.
You might be able to make that happen. You probably could. All right. Well, Heather, I'll let you go. But thank you again and good luck and keep in touch. Let me know how you're doing, even though I'll probably see it on Facebook. But
Yeah,
and I'm
we'll
glad
stay
that
in
we met.
touch for
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
All
thank you so
right.
much. Thank you for listening to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Facebook. Oh, and if you have not signed up to be an organ donor, please visit www.organdonor.gov and register today. You too can save lives.